everybody, what is up? My name's Wes Gardner. This is my YouTube channel. This is my girlfriend, Brittany Johnson. This is Wes and Brit Watch, where we watch movies, usually of the horror variety, and then do quick little reviews for you guys, just to let you know what we thought about it.
Yep.
The one, little bit of background. I did go to film school for a little bit. Brittany's a huge aficionado of horror films.
Now, aficionado, I don't know. I like to watch them, and that's it. That's my whole credential here.
Sometimes that's all it takes. So we're going to be going at it from a lot of different angles, and horror movies are going to be where we kind of do the main focus. But any movies, if you guys have requests, let us know. It'll be a lot of fun, but we have a lot lined up. But we had to pick one movie to start with. Mm-hmm. Kind of the movie that encompasses what this whole series is going to be. How are we going to do this? And this is actually one of your favorite scary movies of all time.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? The original Child's Play from 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Chucky. But we're going to...
He's the best.
He is the best. We're going to show you the trailer real quick. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about it. I got notes written down. Isn't that fancy? But yeah, so check out this amazing 1988 era trailer for Child's Play.
Everyone has a birthday they'll always remember.
Can we open my presents now, Mommy? A good guy! I knew it! I'm Chucky.
He's something, isn't he?
This is Andy's.
Time for bed, Andy. Good night, baby.
Good night, Aunt Maggie. Good night, Chucky.
Everyone knows most accidents happen at home.
How did that happen?
This is no accident.
Andy!
I'm Detective Mike Norris, homicide.
Andy!
Miss Peterson's dead, Miss Barclay. She fell from the kitchen window.
Someone's moved in with the Barclay family, and so has terror.
Mommy, I know who was on the counter.
Andy!
Who, Andy?
Chucky.
Nobody believes you about Chucky. He came alive in my hand.
Oh, for God's sake.
Why won't you believe me?
Because I'm sane, Mrs. Barclay, sane and rational.
No one believes the truth. Or lives to tell it. There's nothing nice about murder. And there's nothing innocent about Child's Play.
There's nothing innocent about Child's Play. Not a single thing is innocent about it.
Not with Chucky.
Not with Chucky. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
So explain why. This is kind of going. I have the notes here and everything, but this is from an era of horror film that kind of set the stage for, in my opinion, the future of contemporary horror films. Like you had Halloween in the late 70s. You have Nightmare on Elm Street. You have Jason. You have all these 80s kind of icons, and Chucky's definitely in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell me your bit about, like, why Chucky? Like, why is it your favorite? Before we get to the nitty gritty, like, what is it?
Okay, well, because Chucky and Freddy are my two favorites.
Okay.
And just, you were listing them off. And here's the thing about those two that, who else did you say? Jason and...
Jason.
Michael Myers.
But he was a little before, but yeah, around
yeah.
the same...
Well, so here's what they didn't have. They didn't talk. But if you'll notice, Chucky and Freddy are the
two
one-liners. They drop it like and Chucky has a potty mouth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
He goes from 0 to infinity, and
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
And so maybe there's some of that. Brad Dourif does the voice, and he just has a really iconic voice, I guess.
He's stellar.
Yeah,
Like,
he's really good. And then Chucky just has the size thing. Chucky's tiny. Like, he's
Yeah.
a doll. So he fits a lot of really scary places.
Right.
Under the bed, under the couches,
Yeah.
in closet. Like, he can be anywhere.
There's something inherently creepy about dolls. And I don't know if... Here's the thing. Like, I was born in 86, and this came out in 88, so I was still really too young to process any of it.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if it's the horror movie thing that dolls are scary because of Chucky, or were they scary before, and then Don Mancini was like, hey, dolls are scary. Let's make this.
Well, I'm sure that the Child's Play, like Chucky being the scary doll, added to it.
Yeah.
But there's some, like, China dolls that are pretty freaky looking.
Yeah, like these ancient looking...
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
sometimes they're just scary.
It's
And I
really-
think, and part of it, you know, they make eyeballs that open and close and stuff, and that's kind of weird.
That's
It's kind of
true.
a weird thing.
Even those big dolls nowadays that you put to sleep, and like
Yeah.
if you tilt them back, their eyes roll back. It's weird,
Mhm.
weird
But
stuff.
if you half tilt them, they're like half open,
Ugh,
and they do, yeah. So dolls
Just
are kind of
uneasy. Because
strange.
here's the thing that has all the features of a person. It's
Uh-huh.
not real. There's no soul. There's no
Mhm.
feedback. Like, sure, it has this mechanical, I'm Chucky, want to play? Like, that type of stuff. But then you don't get anything. But now you do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I have some notes written down here, and we just got done watching the movie again. This was actually, from what I remember, this is my second time really ever seeing Child's Play.
Mhm.
We saw it first when we first got together. We were like, yeah, we love movies. You know, I studied them, and you know, she was like, oh, I have all these scary movies. We need to watch through them. You know, to really, you know, ignite this this type of discussion. And I watched it, and I was surprised at how well it aged. Which sounds weird because it's the most 80s movie, right? Like, I put the opening street scene. So, in the very opening scene, Brad Dourif is running from the law. You don't have any context of it. He has a gun in hand, then there's a detective that's coming after him, and there's a big shootout. It reminds me of Lethal Weapon. Like, it's the very 80s, rainy outside, you know, the neon-soaked whatever. Like, every 80s movie, you know, after Blade Runner wanted to look like Blade Runner. And it was the rain,
Yeah.
it was the lights, it was the hazy car, the smoky fog, the whatever. So Brad Dourif, you know, they do the shootout and everything like that. He's doing exposition the entire time. He's like, I gotta get out of here. So he looks around, shoots out a window, you know, like that type of thing, goes into a toy store. Knows he gets shot during the shootout, Brad Dourif does. So he's like, I'm dying. He says I'm dying, which makes me laugh every time. Because would you think you would say that?
Maybe.
It depends, right? Like, I don't know. But it just cracks me up because he's so...
Well, and you have to, he's Charles Lee Ray,
Mhm.
the Lakeshore Strangler, serial killer. So he's probably surprised at his own, well, and as the film goes on, we know he's got this thing with mortality.
Yeah.
And so he's probably kind of surprised. So maybe him
Maybe so.
stating,
A realization,
like, I'm
like,
dying,
oh, this is what I did to people.
like he's probably mad and surprised.
That's a good idea.
So
I didn't
maybe,
think about that. Yeah.
maybe because of the character he's playing, maybe it is fitting.
Yeah.
So even though to us it feels like a silly line.
It is a little, but 80s were filled with those silly type of lines.
Yeah.
But you gotta love them. Like, that adds to the appeal. And what I really enjoyed is there's the scene where he knocks over the big thing of the good guy dolls, which is what they're called. Apparently they're based on the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah.
And so
Weird.
yeah. I
had one.
I did too. So he knocks over this big thing of good guy dolls, and you put out a great point, and this just goes to show Brad Dourif as an actor, is you see the beat in his face whenever he realizes, you know, he's into voodoo.
And the whole time he's been saying, I need to find a body.
Yeah.
I need to find a body.
To transfer his soul to. And so he sees the doll, and he has this look on his face, like, what a creepy-looking doll. And then Brittany pointed it out, like, there's this beat, like, aha. You see the light bulb in his head, like, this is the thing.
Because Brad Dourif has a skill where first his eyes kind of change, where he's like, huh. and then his forehead like straightens out, and you see that he's like, I can use this, and it's kind of a cool moment for him as an actor, because he really plays the part of where he's figuring out what he's gonna do, and he does it well.
Yeah, and you know, saying silly exposition and stuff is one thing, but actually with no words, you see the transference of information. That's a whole different level, and it's great because I have my Brad Dourif memories are Lord of the Rings. He was Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings, and he did amazing. He did an impeccable job as Wormtongue. Kind of a crucial character, but he's kind of in the shadows. But this was great to see him in, I guess, a more hokey role, but stuff in Lord of the Rings can be pretty hokey. But still, you could tell, like, his acting chops are so well above what anyone else's in the whole movie was. I do have to give a shout out to the kid that played Andy.
I was about to say maybe the kid, but
he was good.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really expect nowadays. Some child actors are like prodigies, and then the other ones are like, wowza, this is not going well. But he was great. He, you know, there were a few scenes that were, especially one we're going to get to later, where he's in an asylum, or when he's not in an asylum really. It's more of a.
He's under, like, observation in a mental hospital.
And, like, he has this realization that Chucky's come to kill him. He's a 6-year-old kid, and he breaks down, and you're like, that's a kind of powerful scene for what this is.
It really was, yeah.
You know, and he has pretty good acting chops. But yeah, like, let's see, but that was kind of the opening. So the transference of the spirit into Chucky, or the good guy doll's body, was really good. We noticed that it's a very 80s thing. It could be just lack of technology or whatever, but the camera never stops moving. So even if it's a subtle, handy cam, shaky thing, they may have not been able to afford a good tripod. Like, I don't know what's up, but it adds to it. I mean, it adds that, like I said, like Lethal Weapon sort of grungy sort of feel to it. There was a nice touch right when he transferred his soul. That Chucky doll that was out that had his soul, and Brad Dourif had the same expression on their face.
Yeah, see, I didn't notice that, but you said that their bodies were, like, tilted
In the same
way.
like,
they
the camera, the camera showed both of them back to back, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good, because it shows here's what he was, and now here's what he is.
Oh, because we know he transferred his soul, but if you don't know the franchise, and, like, imagine being a person who's just seeing this movie, they don't actually give you any context for that in that first scene. So that's, like, the first, I mean, you hear Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray doing the chant, but you don't know what it means, and so that's the first indication that there's something going on with the way that they would move the camera, I guess. Yeah,
and that's the cool thing about this, is the first, 45 minutes of the film, it's a lot of hints that something's up, and that's something that we talked about, and I love the idea that Chucky kills people to make it look like an accident. I love it, and the reason why is they framed it at the beginning. Who really killed Aunt Maggie? Was it Chucky, or was it Andy? And you don't know. I mean, you're given the stuff, especially the point of view camera of Chucky, which makes me laugh every time. I think it's genius. What a great way on a low budget to show that this doll is alive than to have a camera and go boop 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 boop, like, to pop it around. But and like you said, since he's small. You know, the camera's way down, like, shin level. Yeah. So, you know, even Andy's taller than that. Right. So that's kind of your giveaways, but you have that information as a viewer. But nobody else in the film does, right? Because it could be Andy. This kid could be psycho. But it's, let's see, I'm looking through this. But it's just an interesting dynamic, because for that first about hour, you don't know. You're like, is this story really about a killer doll, or is this kid finally kind of off his rocker? And
because even the camera angles, I mean, they're low, but there's still enough question whether or not it's Andy or Chucky. And then in the death of Aunt Maggie, you don't see anything except Aunt Maggie gets hit upside the head and then falls backwards out of a window. Yeah. But you don't see anything to indicate. Dramatic too. Wow.
And then she, like, hits the table and flings backwards.
she trips out, but when the camera changes and she's coming out, it looks like she's like flying.
Yeah, well, it looks like that stunt woman took a 30-yard dash towards the window and just jumped.
And probably she did. It was pretty intense looking. But either way, you don't actually see who does it, so it makes it a question.
When what kind of a genius way we talked about it too? Like, use a hammer to the face. That's how it happened. Knocked her back. But then she fell. How many stories? Like 6 stories, and then crashed into a car. So now you can't tell that a hammer hit her in the head. You know. So once again, it looks like an accident. But you know, of course, then there's a detective. He starts asking questions, and it's the same detective, dun dun dun, that had the shootout with Charles Lee Ray in the
opening scene.
In the very open.
Yeah.
So it's all coming together. I do want to say one of the best reveals out of the whole movie is there's a scene where, you know, Andy's mom is like, oh, this Chucky doll, blah, blah, this is all Andy really talks about and whatever. She looks at the box and realizes...
And this is also after the second murder.
Yeah.
Where Andy skipped school.
Yeah.
You left out that whole
I did. Oh my god. I don't know if my mind just wanted me to forget it or like...
So the day after Aunt Maggie dies, Andy skips school, and he goes, his mom takes him to school. When she leaves, he walks outside and then ends up like ditching school on, he says it's Chucky's idea.
Not only ditching school, he goes across Chicago. Like, so there's a scene of him, he's taking his Chucky doll into school with him, which is kind of weird anyway. I didn't know. I was never allowed to take my toys
but there was another kid in the film who also had a Chucky doll,
15, and he had
or
a Chucky
good
doll.
Guy doll,
Yeah.
which was kind of a neat addition.
Yeah, they were just a popular toy.
Yeah.
So it was a good little deal. But then it shows the scene. He goes in, and then 10 seconds pass, and then he goes out the back door of the school, and he does this like little like scoping out the joint, and then he runs off to a train station, gets on a train, gets off on the bad part of town, walks down the stairs, through like Hobo Alley.
Like under a bridge.
In Chicago, middle of the day. No one's asking questions.
No one even looked at him. Which we thought was kind of silly.
Well, come on. And I know we're talking about, you know, cognitive dissonance or the sense of disbelief on a movie where a doll is killing people. But come on, like, there's certain things that'll just be like...
People would see him.
Like, where are you going, buddy?
Well, even if they didn't do that, like, no one even looked at... Like, it was like he was invisible, which would not happen.
Maybe it was a voodoo thing that the doll did.
No. But so they went off to murder somebody.
Yeah. They went off to kill Charles Lee Ray's accomplice, I guess, who ratted him out. So, and that was one of Brad Dourif's big things. He's like, oh, Eddie, blah, 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 I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
So that was his revenge kill. Kind of anticlimactic. Basically made him shoot a gun, made the Eddie character shoot a gun because he was scared in a building that gas was on or something. Because
Chucky turned it on.
Yeah.
And that was the scene where you first realize that Chucky is the one, because you see his hand.
His little doll hand, like...
And so you see him, like, opening a door, and you see him turning on the gas on the stove. So that's the first indication that Chucky's actually the one.
Yeah. So, big explosion happens. Detective's like, oh, Andy's insane, and he killed someone else.
Yeah.
Like, because he was here at the explosion, he ditched school. Then it turns into the whole scene of, oh, Chucky made me do it. Chucky made me do it. And here's my one complaint, and I know it's part of the movie. The whole, like, let's see, I have it written down somewhere, that everyone's like, oh, nobody believes me. Everyone has that nobody believes me. Who's going to believe me? That shtick gets real tired after the second time you hear it. Like, yeah, what? Don't you believe? No, apparently no one believes you. Like, so you're just crying out for help. But then over the course of, an hour and 30-minute movie, when you hear that 12 times, you're like, just prove. Like, do something to show.
But that's the thing, though. You can't.
Right.
You can't make Chucky talk. You can try.
That's true. But it was just, I don't know if it was just the child acting, but then the mom started doing it. You don't believe me. Like, it was just really kind of off-putting. But the big reveal we were talking about, all that to set up, that the mom...
She takes the doll home.
Takes the doll home from the police station, whatever. Oh, we found his doll and he's been bad and all this other stuff.
And Andy's being carted to the mental hospital.
Yeah, because he's been killing people.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, why don't you talk to me? You talk to my son. Why don't you talk to me? Rah, rah, rah. And then realizes, oh, I'm so silly. I'm talking to a doll. Then goes into the kitchen, looks at the box like, oh, I bought this off a street bum. By the way, she bought it off of one of the hobos. So never buy stuff under a bridge is the moral of this story. But looks at it, and then the batteries fall out of the box. Great reveal. Like, I loved it because, hey, there's no batteries in that toy, but it has been talking this whole time. So now she knows what the hell.
Well,
like,
that something's going on. And what's so great about that is I wouldn't have thought of it. I wouldn't have thought about the batteries, or that she didn't put them in, or that he needed them even, really.
Right.
And so...
Like, he may have came with a pair inside of him, and then an extra spare in the box, or something.
Or even, like, I just didn't think about the practicality of batteries.
And that's something that this movie actually does pretty well, is there's the devil's in the details, and they have a lot of details.
And I think that's why that's such a good reveal, because not only is she like, what, but you're like... No batteries.
Yeah, it's so simple.
Yeah.
But that's give it up to, Tom Holland and Don Mancini, the kind of the main writers for this, is that's why I think these movies from this era stick out a little more, is because there's other movies, massive plot holes. This one, not as many.
Yeah.
For a silly movie about a killer doll that has the spirit of a serial killer based on voodoo magic, they kind of crossed the T's and dotted the I's, which is impressive. I mean, to keep track of all your BS, like this own lore that you're making up, to not step on its own feet is kind of genius, I think. And then we're going to be doing more Chucky films, but it's consistent,
well,
somewhat consistent.
There are parts of the franchise where you might lose the logic, but looking at this film as itself, I mean, voodoo's a thing.
It is, and we actually looked because we heard Brydorf keep saying the thing Dumbala.
Anyone who's familiar with the franchise knows that that's like a big thing, later on too.
Apparently, it's a real deal. Haitian voodoo, it says folk Catholicism, like a lot of this stuff. We looked at just very bare bones stuff, but it's legit. I mean, it's
a real thing.
It is a real thing, and it's some sort of deity of a higher power, and it is what it is, and it may not go very in depth to it, but hey, it answered the question. Like, well, who's he worshiping? Well, it's a real thing, so who knows? And then I will say there's another good scene to where Chucky, Charles Lee Ray as the doll, goes back to the voodoo kind of, you don't want to call him a witch doctor, do you? It's like that's kind of how they portray him, but I guess he's more of the scholar of voodoo that taught Charles Lee Ray. Goes back and he's like, hey, Doc. And he's like, what do you think of me now? And then the guy's like, you're an abomination. I'm going to kill you. And and then it goes into this voodoo doll scene, which is really, it was neat, but it was kind of silly. But, why, you brought up the good point. Why would you have a voodoo doll of yourself?
Yeah.
Like, why would you even make it?
And then...
To see if it worked?
And then Chucky says, you shouldn't tell your customers where you keep things like this.
That's pretty good.
Why would you tell
Like, what a smart-ass doll. The whole time.
Like, that really is probably one of the reasons why I like him so much.
Yeah.
Well, because that's true. Why would you tell anybody about that?
Yeah. Well, first, why make it?
And then...
Second, guess what I made? Over here. Look at me.
Yeah.
Like, but if you don't stab it, because it'll stab me too. Like, how do you, like, you know what I mean? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
But
an interesting kill, because he uses the doll instead of actually killing the person.
Sure, so he's using, it's a taste of his own medicine. Basically.
And it also gives validity to the voodoo that let Charles Lee Ray become the good guy doll Chucky.
Yeah.
So it kind of lends the validity that I guess you might need in the film.
That needed, yeah, because they kind of talked about it like, oh, he's weird and he possessed a doll or whatever, but you never really got anything else until that scene. And then it cleared up a lot. It also brought up the point of the longer he stays in the doll, because he goes to see the doctor, because he's like, well, I'm bleeding. Why is this happening? And then the
Right.
guy's like, before he gets massacred with the voodoo doll, says, well, the longer you stay in the doll, the more human you become again. Like, your spirit's here in the world, so it wants to become a human. Which is kind of genius. That's a genius way to explain it.
Yeah.
Because that's persistent throughout all the Chucky films.
Yes.
In different ways, and we'll get to it as we get to each film. But that one thing, that little piece of lore, is kind of a big deal. Because then it's a race to the clock. Well,
and
now
you have to put your soul, like, the only person that you can transfer your soul into is the first one that you told who you are.
Your secret, too.
So,
like, I'm
Charles Lee Ray.
I am this person, and yeah.
Right.
So, and that was Andy. Because it was Andy's doll, you know, Chucky was talking to him, all this other stuff, told him to go into the freaking subway and ditch school, like the whole thing. So it's Andy. So now it's a race against the clock. The only two people that know that the doll is alive at this point are the mother, Andy's mom, of course, because she's the whole battery thing, and then she get like bit in the arm or something. And then the homicide detective, like, kind of the big rational, like, man, you're full of it, well, you better get some sleep. Like, he's the only other one, because he's, well, of course, he was there whenever he killed Charles Lee Ray, so Charles Lee Ray has a vendetta against him. Like, gets his car flipped over, or no, he's hiding in his police car, stabs through the deal with a knife, through the seats, like, towards his crotch, kind of a funny gag shot. But like, you know, going after
this whole battle.
Yeah, an entire battle. Like, the car flips. He's shooting at Chucky. And that's how Chucky gets shot to go see the doctor. Because I am bleeding. It hurt like hell.
But ultimately, the detective lives.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising, but also which is why he then knows
that she's telling the truth. And that Andy was telling the truth as well. But how interesting that the mom, of course you would think, well, if the son's crazy, probably he may have inherited it from the crazy mom. So that one, But the rational homicide, like, hard-boiled police detective that, like, does a knee attack to a hobo's crotch in the movie, which made me laugh.
You don't have to say crotch so many times.
It's just funny. Like, I'll get back to that in a minute. But what better character to have believe that the doll's alive? Is this guy that's kind of seen everything. He's been on the streets. He wouldn't believe any of that crap. But it happened, and he knows it's true, so he's going to believe it. But the whole thing of whenever he goes and saves Andy Barclay's mom with the hobos and stuff, like, there's a hobo fight, and he knees the hobo in the crotch, and then someone in the back goes, that guy's a cop. Like, that was the tell that he was a cop. Like, that guy needs that hobo in the
he didn't pull a badge or anything.
Nothing. He didn't have any sort of stuff on him. He wasn't wearing a police outfit. Nothing.
I guess someone might have recognized him.
Maybe, yeah.
But the timing was just, it was ill-planned.
Who else in the world would need someone in the crotch but a policeman? Like, that's what, it all came together. But yeah, so now it's a race to the clock. Chucky's going after Andy to possess him, put his spirit in that body, and then the detective and the mom on their way, because they know what's going to happen.
Yep, and they're trying to get to Andy first.
Yeah. So they get to a house.
Her house.
Andy's house. Yeah, Andy's house. You brought up a great point. Why are all the lights off?
Yeah, well, that goes back to kind of the size thing, because if you have a doll, and you're all in this apartment, and there are all of these glorious, like, under-the-bed cabinet areas, like, he's going to hide before you are. So yeah. I just thought, turn on all of the lights, because
that's a good point.
You're already at a disadvantage because you have size. So
yeah, right, yeah,
if you
exactly.
turn on all the lights, then you're at an advantage because you might be able to see him scurrying under something.
Yeah, yeah, and he's right at the level, like, slash. I think he does to the detective. He, like, slashes his calf or something,
yes.
like Achilles' heel, and like, ugh, this is rough. But yeah, like, I agree. He has more hiding spots
because this whole battle ensues inside the apartment,
which is pretty ridiculous. But
see, he's so small, and that's he surprises everyone.
Exactly, and so yeah, they end up, basically it turns into a big fight type deal. The mom puts Chucky in a fireplace. Money line of the movie. Money line. Chucky looks at Andy. Andy has a match. Chucky looks at him, and Andy said, what did he say? He says,
Chucky says, But we're friends to the end.
And then Andy, in the best/worst reading in the whole film.
That's true. It really wasn't a well-delivered line.
This is the end, friend. Boom, and like just ignites him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of Chucky.
Well.
You think? You see what I did there?
Uh-huh.
That was the end, friend, or was it? Other detective comes in. Oh, you guys look like hell. What happened? The doll came to life. What do you mean the doll came to life? Are you crazy? And it's like, go look in the hallway, but don't touch him.
Other detective is like, oh, burned head. Let me pick it up.
Let me pick it up. Look at this. I'm dead. I'm never alive. Sets it on the table. He goes up back to, like...
He's just standing by the wall, but there's a... It's like a
vent.
vent.
It's like one of the old school air conditioning vents. Then the charred Chucky body grabs him.
And trying to choke him to death.
Choking him out. Detective pulls out a gun. They learned from the voodoo doctor right before he passed. He was like, you have to go save the boy. The only way to kill Chucky is to kill his heart. The heart of Damballa, right?
No, that's the amulet.
That's the amulet.
Now you're making stuff up.
Yeah. No.
Because his heart is human now.
Right.
And
that's why he's bleeding and all that stuff.
But you have to kill the heart to kill the body, I guess.
Sure, yeah. I guess in zombie movies it's take out the head. But in this is take out the heart.
There you go.
So so detective shoots Chucky in the heart. Let's just say in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they infer.
Well, that's the assumption.
He flies back, which, by the way, hilarious gags all through the movie.
Every time he gets shot.
They just throw this doll at the wall, and then just film it, and it looks hilarious every time.
But it happens like 3 seconds too late.
It's a slow motion shot, so you see the squib, and squib is basically the fake blood packs they put on that actually explode, but actually make like a burst. So you see the blood, blue, and then he just stands there and then goes, bah! Flips back. The funniest gag. They do it 4 times in the movie. It makes me laugh. They do it dozens of times in the series, but it makes me laugh so much because it's a doll. Of course it's gonna ragdoll around.
Yeah.
And so that happens, and then the movie ends. They get up and they're like, "What a weird day," and they leave, and then Andy is walking out of the room and looks over at Chucky, and Chucky's just charred remains, blood all over
the wall.
Everywhere, all over the curtains, ruined this room. And so looks at him, and then shuts the door, credits roll.
So the ending leaves you feeling a little incomplete, I think.
Yeah, because we don't know he shot him in the heart. He's bleeding. He can bleed.
Yeah.
If I get shot, I'm going to bleed no matter where you shoot me.
It's just assumed.
Right. There's an assumption there. And I'm like, this doll is a killer doll. We've seen that if you burn him, it doesn't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
If you shoot him, it doesn't kill him.
Which that was weird.
Yeah.
That he would burn and not.
Right. I guess.
But I guess if you stop, drop, and roll.
Maybe, and he's tiny enough to. But maybe the plastic was like an armor against it or something. I don't know.
I don't know. That's weird.
Very weird stuff. But
yeah.
But yeah,
there's one flaw.
Yeah. Don Mancini, you have answers to give. But overall, solid movie.
Yeah.
Seriously, just all in all, solid movie. Sure, it might be a little hokey. It's from an era now that we've kind of moved past, and as far as horror films, it's not the forte anymore. But I can see why this set up a giant franchise.
Yeah.
There was a certain sense of quality there that, you can absolutely make 6 more films of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was ridiculous enough that you already established voodoo. You already established souls, going into different things. So there's a lot of funny things happening. It's kind of a dark comedy in a way. Because it's just preposterous. What? Why would the guy choose the doll, even in his last breath? He could have just been, darn the luck.
No, because he was desperate to cheat death. Like,
yeah, because he was
did
into
not
voodoo.
want to die.
That's true. Like you said earlier, he had a thing about mortality.
Yeah.
But once again, like, I can bring out all these things, but then there's an answer for it, which you don't see in a lot of horror movies, especially nowadays. Good Lord.
That's true.
But
well, and like one thing we talked about, Charles Lee Ray, like it's never discussed why he's a serial killer, kind of who his victims usually are.
He just is.
And so because of that, Chucky killing whomever he chooses makes sense. Like
it makes sense.
It fits the character.
Because we're not told otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he only goes after 15-year-old dudes or something. You know, like there's not a type that he goes for. He just kills.
And so I guess
that's
a good thing to leave out to actually make the logic of the film make sense.
Right. That's where, the benefit of not enough information works in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you infer. You put, well, it makes sense because they didn't say otherwise, which is kind of genius filmmaking, you know. And but this is, you can tell, what was the budget? The budget was $9 million. It made $44.2 million. I think it made 33 of it, or 34 of it in North America, and then the rest of it they made overseas. That doesn't even count, like, DVD sales. Yeah. Something interesting, and we talked about this simply because, how many box sets of Chucky do you have?
Well, I have the one box set, and it has Child's Play 2 and 3, and then Bride and Seed.
Yes.
And so I had to buy the original Child's Play on its own, and then I bought the box set before Curse of Chucky was a thing, and so I bought Curse of Chucky as its own DVD as well.
I see. So, but what was interesting is I was like, why does this not have the original movie? It has Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, Seed, and Bride, right? So it has those 4 films. Why not the original? We looked it up. The first film was the only film that was released by MGM/United Artists. However, United Artists stopped being a thing, I want to say, in either 1990 or 1991. The rights of the series, to the Child's Play series, were sold to Universal Studios in 1990, right before the production of Child's Play 2 started. So in our mind, we kind of worked out, well, maybe they had the rights to the name Child's Play, but not for the publishing and distribution rights to the film Child's Play 1.
Right.
So that explains why you got a box set. You know, and some of you out there might have the same box set. Like, why does this not have the original? Owned and produced and published by different companies, which is interesting. So I don't know if Universal got all of the rights to every United Artists thing, or if it's still under MGM, because MGM's still a company.
Yeah.
They don't do nearly as much as they used to, but they're still kicking. Just interesting tidbit stuff, you know. It's fun. But Don Mancini, writer with all of them, right? With all the Chucky films.
I think so.
Because I know Tom Holland.
I almost hope not Seed.
right. Maybe not. Yeah. And it says Tom Holland directed. I know he didn't direct everyone, but I think he produced every film. So they keep consistencies all the way through the entire series. Some of them better than others. We're going to get to those in later episodes. But we have a rating system. We have a buy it, rent it, or skip it. So what would you say about Child's Play 1, the 1988 classic that started it all?
Well, since I own it,
right.
Obviously, I'd say buy it. I mean, I think that because with horror films, I always just kind of have to take them as they are anyway, and just remember that horror films are kind of their own thing. Yeah. I think Child's Play does what it does well. I think it's one that's worth watching over and over again, because even us watching it multiple times, there's new pieces.
Right.
And just appreciating Brad Dourif he does well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's only actually in the film for like 4 minutes, and then it's just his voice, and he's just fantastic.
Even then, his voice isn't in all that much of the movie, because it's
not
people.
This one, that's true.
Because it's people just shouting that Chucky's like, he's strangling me. But Chucky says a few like curse words, and that's about it. So Brad Dourif's total screen time, including voice, is less than 10 minutes. And he's amazing. Like, you feel that Brad Dourif is actually part of Chucky. And that takes talent. I mean, but I would also say buy it. This is one of those 80s films that almost started a genre, you could argue. And what better way to, start it than with the first one?
Yeah.
And, I mean, it sounds silly to say, but But like, there's a lot of continuity that actually persists throughout the entire series, even in the really terrible ones. But I mean, this is where it all begins. So I absolutely say buy it. Hell, in my opinion, there's only 2 Child's Play movies that I say, if you needed to just buy like one of them out of like, how many are there? 7? 6. Okay, if you only had to buy one of 6, there's only 2 I would say that you could buy safely, and this is one of them. The other one we'll talk about is it Curse Chucky? The
most recent.
The most recent one, and we'll get to that one in a further review. But one of those 2 is a safe bet just to have in your movie collection, because yeah, Child's Play is pretty rad, pretty good movie.
It's a classic.
I mean, it really is a classic. It sounds silly to say that the Killer Doll movie is a classic, but it is. And I mean, we made the joke, is this the prequel to Annabelle? Because we're seeing the creepy doll stuff come back. You know, Annabelle, James Wan, that whole crew. Now we're seeing it in every scary movie now.
Even Saw had
Dead Silence.
The puppet.
Yeah, Saw had the puppet. Dead Silence.
Oh,
that was a whole thing.
All puppets.
Yeah, like collecting puppets, and even God, there's just so many. You even see it in TV now. There's episodes of Supernatural that have the puppets, like the whole thing. So this kind of started a lot of that. Something may have predated it in more of a creepy, scary movie way, but I mean, Chucky's kind of the most famous killer doll.
Yeah.
You know.
So
you know, because Saw would be Jigsaw, the guy, not necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever that other thing's name is.
Yeah.
Like Horatio or something.
I was
don't
just
know.
pointing out.
Yeah, no, but that's a great thing. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, so this is kind of the, I don't know, this is kind of the lexicon, as it were. It started it. So absolutely, I say buy it. That's our first review. That's Child's Play 1.
Woo!
Yeah, so let us know what you think about it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you loved it, if you hated it, if you're making fun of us for talking about how good Child's Play is. Let us know, because we get it. We get
feedback on the review or the film.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments. We'll get right back to you. Let's see. Would you consider this your pick? So would it be my pick next?
I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know these things. But I'm Wes.
Someone will pick, and there will be another film.
There will be another one, trust us. But welcome to 2015. First YouTube video of 2015. Hope this is going to be a great year, because we got stuff like this. But I'm Wes Gardner.
I'm Brittany Johnson.
And this is Wes and Brit Watch, Episode 1.
And this is the end, friend.
Friend! Doom, doom, doom.
Please. We're friends to the end. Remember?
This is the end, friend.